students. This is the fourth video in the series of 3D design sustained investigation examples. So in this video, I will go through several other portfolios and you will get a little bit more information about what the scorers are looking for when they look at your work. All right. Oops. All right, so for this sustained investigation, the theme is knowledge from books. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the scoring rubric, go back and watch the other videos where I go over that in more detail. Go back and watch the video from yesterday where I talk about scoring. Download the scoring rubric from the College Board, read it, highlight the keywords, know what it says. Begin with the end in mind. So when you start your concentration, start by thinking about what they're going to be looking for when they grade you so that you can make your pieces to fit what they're looking for. All right, so let's get into this portfolio right here. So we have the first selection of images, and then we have the second selection of images. Now, like I've been talking about, this portfolio is rather old, so it's from 2013, and it received a 4 in 2013. So I believe that if this portfolio was turned in 2020, it would actually score a 3. They've gotten a lot harsher throughout the years, with good reason. There are several things in this portfolio that I could see being improved upon, so I would agree with a 3 score, even though that is lower than what it got at the time. So let's look at the student's commentary and then the rationale for the score. So the student said that the nature of my concentration is knowledge in books and how people take it and how others grow into it. And then the written explanation is, I started with the idea that we seize knowledge administered to us and utilize it for ourselves. This is conveyed in images 1 through 6. Following that notion, it came to me that we also flourish when we obtain knowledge, which is expressed in images 7 through 12. In each one, I show different points of view in which knowledge is obtained. Like in image 4 through 6, people strip knowledge, and what they don't want is discarded and left. But people sometimes take that knowledge and develop, like images 11 and 12, where the grass is greener on the other side. The rationale for the score is, a concentration topic is presented but is explored in a safe manner with minimal risk-taking. So make sure that you are taking risks and you are not being conventional or cliche. There is evidence of an original idea, but technical execution is not as accomplished. Images 8 and 11 have engaging qualities, but craftsmanship and design hinder overall quality. Never let them be able to say that you do not have good craftsmanship. The decision-making in the concentration demonstrates engagement with the processes and manipulation of material, but without the intent to present a more evocative idea and personal expression. The principles of 3D design are exhibited, and the student successfully activates the space in images 6, 9, and 11. However, other works are less successful. So make sure that if you want those higher scores, that you have good quality work overall. So what they're saying here is some of their pieces are good, but some of them can use some work. All right, the next concentration is the theme houses. So this is the first slide of their portfolio and the second slide of their portfolio. And this portfolio made a 3 in 2012. So the rationale for the score is, the theme of the concentration is well focused and the work presented clearly relates to the topic. The theme of storytelling through objects is explored with some playful and engaging qualities, but technical competence is rudimentary. The work demonstrates a moderate understanding and application of 3D design principles used to activate physical space. In general, decisions about choice and use of materials are not well considered. So unlike the portfolio that we focused on that was about the femininity and they really liked the materials that they used, in this portfolio they feel like it was kind of random. And if you look, it does look like it's just kind of a random mishmash of different things, and they did nothing to kind of like defy the medium. So like when they used wood, you can see that it's wood. They didn't paint it, stain it, put veneer or finish on it. So there were a lot of things that they could have done that would have been a little bit better. The combination of materials in base and images 4 and 5 is awkward, as is the scale of the stones of the roof in images 7 and 8. So remember, we talk about this some, but begin with the end in mind, especially with 3D design. So you need to think about how is it going to be displayed and how is it going to be photographed? Is it going to be on a pedestal? Do you need to get some kind of base for it to go on? Do you need to hang it from string? Do you need to attach it to the wall? What wall can you attach it to? So there are a lot of things to consider when you're creating three-dimensional work, especially work that is not as straightforward as pottery. The work shows some growth in concept and use of materials, agreed. In the piece represented in images 9 through 12, the inclusion of text and the view to the interior creatively expand the dialogue between form and narrative. Overall, the work is of moderate to good quality. Now remember, this portfolio scored a 3, so that means that they are performing at the level that AP wants you to be performing at. A 3 is a good score, a 3 is passing, but there are definitely some areas that could use some improvement on this portfolio. So what they're saying here is that this person is performing about at the level that a college freshman would be expected to perform at. If you want that 4 and 5, you need to be exceeding those expectations. And it is an exploration of very non-objective forms, and it also has a lot of architectural elements. And this portfolio received a score of 6 in 2017. I think that this portfolio would still receive a 6 today. That is a perfect score. So let's look at these images a little bit more and think about what set this portfolio apart to make it a 6 or a perfect score. Think about how they engaged 3D space. Think about how they used the materials and their craftsmanship. Think about the variety, but think how everything is very visually unified. It is very abstract, but there's also a lot of obvious skill here. The student said that the theme of their concentration was to explore the functional and aesthetic roles of the stilt in architecture. A foundational element of architecture, the stilt serves many functional and decorative roles. Stilts give order to a random structure and can break up the pattern and homogeneity of similar elements, so like not homogeneous. I built numerous structures highlighting the different purposes stilts can serve. Like a building, each project is grounded on a base that takes on its own form once above the ground. Let's look back at those. All right, so it looks like maybe this was an error on my part. I don't believe that that is the correct theme. I think that's a typo. So I think the theme for this is actually stilts. And like I said, it does look architectural. So if we look back at this, thinking of that stilt kind of theme, you definitely see that. Also, one thing that definitely got the students a lot of bonus points, probably getting them to that 6, is that they not only did they think about the base because it's obvious in how well executed the base for each structure is, but they talk about that in their written statement. They talk about how the base becomes its own form in and of itself. And if you look in some of these, the base is actually quite visually interesting in this piece right here, in this piece right here, and in this piece right here. In this piece, it seems like they even flipped it on its head, and so you have stilts that are kind of coming out at different angles, and you have those pieces being stilted. So they definitely explored the theme of stilts accurately, and I apologize for making that mistake earlier. It did sound like that was a weird title for this portfolio. All right, so the works in this concentration progress from least complex to most complex. Piece 1 presents the 3 basic elements used throughout the other works across 3 separate towers. Smart. Each one with a unique yet simple form. Piece 12 also presents the elements I used, but at their final stage. Unlike Piece 1, Piece 12 is more architectural and organized, and it incorporates ideas introduced in other pieces. Circles in Piece 2, levels in Piece 4, spontaneity in Piece 5, piers in Piece 6, and color in Piece 10. The concentration develops progressively more complex aspects of the stilt-related architecture to the point where the sculptures eventually look more and more like buildings. For example, pieces 4, 8, 9, 10, and 12 reference the skyscraper. Early pieces represent simplistic ideas like forest in Piece 2, rift in Piece 3, or burst in Piece 5. The later pieces incorporate multiple objects to create a balanced composition of multiple unique but complementary parts. So it seems to me that it is very obvious that this student started with one idea. Reading their concentration statement, you can tell that at the beginning they probably were doing less architectural work and more abstract sculpture, and they had a word that they were trying to represent in each sculpture. That's why they refer to forest, rift, and burst in quotes. But then as they made more work, they developed and advanced. And then it says that they incorporated multiple objects to create balanced compositions. Things eventually looked more like skyscrapers. They talk about getting more complex as they go. And so it is very clear to me that this student had a very clear end in mind, but they also worked in a very systematic way and allowed themselves to grow throughout the semester and throughout the school year. So overall, this is a great portfolio. It really shows you how an idea can morph and change over time, but how it can still be visually unified. All right, let's see what the scorer had to say. So that was Ms. Cross's 2 cents, but let's see what the person who actually was hired to do the job said. This excellent body of work shows an effective integration of 3D design elements and principles through in-depth investigation of a sequence of problems. The works consistently demonstrate an understanding of 3-dimensional design in concept, composition, and execution. There is a strong visual and conceptual coherence throughout the work. At the same time, 12 distinct engaging variations on a theme are observed. This statement describes a process of investigation. Working sequentially seems to have fostered understanding of individual design components and relationships. This understanding guided creation of subsequent forms which increase in complexity. The statement describes aspects of experimentation, research, and development, providing convincing evidence of informed decision-making and discovery. Growth and transformation are demonstrated by this presentation of 12 unique objects. With the stilt in architecture as an engaging inspiration point, lines, shapes, and textures are used to create work that activates space around and within it, showing understanding and effective application of 3D design principles. Lighting is used effectively to photograph the objects, allowing the viewer to discern occupied and unoccupied space and some detail of the forms. Shadows captured enhance the presentation of the work. Now remember that portfolio earlier where they complained that they said the shadows were distracting. So they're saying, like, as a caveat, this one is a good example of using shadow and lighting when you're taking photos. Colored elements add variety. Natural and refined wood pieces produce textural contrast. Variations of repeated circle shapes and cubes create rhythm. The work is technically excellent, clearly demonstrating expertise in working with media and technique to express ideas. Simple materials are used to craft work with care and attention to detail, essential to the success of work dealing with geometric constructs. Technical issues don't interfere with the viewer's perception of the artistic vision that inspired these pieces. So this is an excellent example of a portfolio that shows synthesis of all the different things that they're looking for in the portfolio, all the different things that we've talked about all throughout your high school art career. This portfolio is a great example of this. Now remember, like I said, the score of 6 is a unicorn score. I would shoot for scoring a 5, and then if you make a 3 or 4, be happy and proud of yourself. But it's always good to know what a 6 looks like and hopefully beg, borrow, and steal some of those ideas. All right, happy making. If you would like to do a little bit more research into professional artists, before you go, let me show you 2 of them. So one of those artists is Theaster Gates, and he is an amazing artist who is doing work, I believe, in Atlanta. And he not only makes beautiful three-dimensional works, but he also involves his entire community in art making, and he talks about that in this video. So if you would like to learn about him and learn about how he views materials and how he views culture, so some of those big ideas that we've been talking about, you can look him up on YouTube and just put in Theaster Gates TED Talk. Another artist that I feel like has an excellent explanation of her process and her thoughts is Janet Eckelman, I believe is how you say her last name, but she makes these huge sculptures that are outside, and she uses netting, and she has like started with fishing nets and she kind of moved forward, but she talks about her process and her growth. So I don't want you to